illandre matte kashta agtade. Okay. So when we talk about electromagnetic induction, we talk about Faraday's laws. Okay. Faraday's laws of EMI. It is electromagnetic induction. So there are two laws stated by Michael Faraday. Okay, what is first law? Okay, Faraday's first law. So this first law will give us how an EMF is induced. First law gives how EMF is induced. And second law gives how much EMF is induced. And second law gives how much EMF is induced. So first law states that whenever flux linking to a coil or a conductor changes, then an EMF is induced in it. Okay. So when flux linking to coil, now I will talk about only coil now. Okay, conductor will replace it with coil. Flux linking to coil changes, then EMF is induced. Okay. Flux linking to coil changes, EMF is induced. It is magnetically neutral. It is not having any capacity to do the work. Now, when the coil experiences the magnetic field and change in the magnetic field, it will gain some capacity to do the work. In that, the coil, I can say, get excited. The coil, I can say, get excited. It will be in a capacity. It will gain some force. It will gain some energy. That is called potential energy. Voltage is a potential energy. So when the coil is experiencing the magnetic field change, then it will gain some potential energy so that it can move the charge carriers and convert that potential energy into kinetic energy. Okay. So whenever an coil is experiencing the change in flux, it will induce an EMF in it. Okay. But how much EMF is induced? The induced EMF is always proportional to rate of change. Rate of change of flux. The EMF induced is always proportional to rate of change of flux. Or I can write E is proportional to d phi by dt. So this is always an average EMF induced. From this expression, whatever the value of EMF I get, that is called average EMF induced. Okay. Or I can write E is equals to N d phi by dt. E is equals to N d phi by dt. Okay. Where N is number of turns in the coil. Number of turns in coil. Okay. So the EMF induced is also now proportional to the number of turns. So more the number of turns I place in the coil, more is the EMF induced in the coil. If I use a straight conductor, then the EMF induced is minimum. It is less. Okay. That is what it means. Okay. Now, along with this, we always define one more law, which will give the direction of induced EMF. What is that?
Lenz's law.
Lenz's law.
It is Lenz's law. So Faraday's first law gives how an EMF is induced. Second law gives how much EMF is induced. Lenz's law gives in what direction the EMF is induced. Okay, it gives direction. Okay. It gives the direction of EMF. So what does it state? Induced EMF always oppose its cause. Okay. Now what is the cause of EMF induction? It is the rate of change of flux. So therefore, the EMF induced is always opposing the change of flux. So I generally take induced EMF is equals to minus N d phi by dt, where negative sign indicates the direction. Now this Lenz law is an observation of the induction. It is not because of Lenz law it is opposing. Many a times we mistakenly say that because of Lenz law the EMF induced is opposing its main cause. No, it is not because of Lenz law. Lenz observed this phenomena and he stated it as a law. It is not because Lenz stated this law the induction is opposing. Okay, it is as per the Lenz law, not because of the Lenz law. And we observe when we see fundamentally the induced EMF is changing its cause, is opposing its cause. But actually, when you see in a broad sense, okay, anything that is induced electromagnetically, whether it is an EMF, it is flux, it is force, it is current, everything will oppose its cause. That is the working principle of induction motor. When we come to induction motor, I will tell you how Lenz law is operating the induction motor. Okay. So one thing you should keep it in mind, Lenz law is not applicable only to the induced EMF. Lenz law is applicable for all the quantities which are getting induced electromagnetically. Okay. Even Lenz law is applicable for us also, for human beings. We also oppose our own causes, right? We oppose our parents, we oppose our teachers, we oppose our friends. The reason why you take for admission for the college is to study, but you oppose that if more classes are taken or if more work is given, right? So this Lenz law is there everywhere. It is universal. Okay? That is a issue apart. Now coming back to this point that this Lenz law is a very beautiful law actually. It is very simple, very straightforward. But entire power network is stable because there is an opposition by the individual quantities. If there is no opposition by the individual quantities, if this nature is not working, if this phenomena is not existing by nature, then no electrical system would have been stable anytime. The DC motor works because of this opposition. Induction motor works because of this opposition. Power network works because of this opposition. Okay. So this observation by Lenz, okay, and the law is the reason, okay, the reason why the induced quantities are opposing the its causes is the reason why the entire electrical system is stable. How exactly it is so, we'll deal when we see the back EMF and its equation and its analysis in the DC motor and in forthcoming motor analysis also. So one thing you remember, because the individual quantities are opposing their causes, the electrical system is stable. When we deal with the particular topics, I will justify this statement at every point, and this is true always. Okay? So this is what induction is: electromagnetic induction, Faraday's first law, Faraday's second law, and Lenz law. Okay. Now this is the principle of operation of generator. Generator should give electrical energy, right? Generator should give electrical energy. So this is the principle of operator of generator and transformer, because output of transformer is also an electrical energy. So we have two types of induction. Okay, one is static induction. Other is dynamic induction. Other is dynamic induction. So static induction we observe in transformers, because neither the primary is moving nor the secondary is moving, so static. This is the reason why many people will tell that transformer is a static device. That is the second reason. The first reason is the principle of operation is static induction. That is the reason why the transformer is known as static device. Well, most of the books also they have mentioned the first point why the transformer is static is that it has no moving parts. But actually, it is called a static device not because it has no moving parts. That is also a reason, but that is the second reason. The first reason is it works on the principle of static induction. So what does static induction and this dynamic induction is for generators? Generator works on dynamic induction principle. Okay. So here, static induction or statically induced EMF. If you take a coil, you pass some current through it, obviously a alternating current, okay, not direct current. You pass some current through it, it will create a flux around it. Now the applied voltage is sinusoidal, therefore the current flowing is sinusoidal, therefore flux produced is also sinusoidal. Now this sinusoidal flux varying sinusoidally is changing its value continuously, okay, over a complete cycle. Therefore, this coil of inductance L is continuously experiencing the change in flux, change in the value of flux. Okay, at omega t equal to 0, it is 0. At omega t equal to 90, it is maximum. At 180 is 0. At 270, maximum in opposite direction. At 360, it is 0. Again, the cycle continues after 360 degrees. Now here what happens? A coil is experiencing the change in the value of flux continuously. Therefore, there induces an EMF, let it be E dash. Now this E dash is equals to, I can write d phi by dt. Suppose this coil is having a number of turns L, N. Okay. So E dash is equals to N d phi by dt. Okay. And we know, as per the Lenz law, a electromagnetically induced quantity is opposing its cause. So the cause of this EMF induced is the current flowing in the circuit. And the reason for current flowing in the circuit is the EMF source. Therefore, this induced EMF will oppose the EMF source. So hence I can take this as minus N d phi by dt, which is always equals to minus E, because there is no other component in the circuit. All the supply voltage is appearing across the charged voltage across or induced voltage across the coil. Okay. So here, neither the conductor is moving nor the flux is moving to have a change in the value of flux experienced by the conductor. Conductor is also stationary, flux is also stationary, but flux is alternating. Okay. So here I can also write this equation as equals to minus N. See, we know in the previous section we have shown phi is equals to L into I. So I can write minus N dLi by dt, or I can write minus N into L di by dt. So E dash is equals to minus N into L di by dt. Okay. Generally, if the term is only one, we call it as we take it as minus L di by dt. So induced EMF with respect to the current flowing in a static coil is L di by dt. So this type of induction is known as static induction. Okay, this type of induction is known as static induction. Neither the coil is moving nor the conductor is moving physically. Now transformer operates with mutual induction. Now if I place one more coil near to this first coil, let me take this as I1. I will place one more coil near to this. Okay. So the flux created by this coil is now also linking to the second coil. Therefore, I will get a EMF induced in the secondary coil also, or the second coil also. Okay. Therefore, I will call this as mutual induction. Call this as mutual induction. So this coil is having a self-inductance of L, and this system is having a mutual inductance of M. So there is a mutual inductance between coil 1 and coil 2. And unfortunately, what has happened is, in your basic electrical engineering, electromagnetism part has been taken off. Hence, you don't in detail study about mutual inductance and its equations in terms of self-inductances. Okay. Yeah. So this principle of operation is known as static induction. And transformer operates with this principle, hence it is known as static machine. Okay. The second type of induction is dynamic induction. And to obtain the direction of induced EMF in static induction, Lenz law is sufficient. To get the direction of EMF, okay, what we use is Lenz law. That is sufficient. Okay. So we have one more type of induction called dynamic induction. Okay. So in dynamic induction, we have here we have relative motion between coil and magnetic field. Relative motion between coil and magnetic field. Okay. So there are two options here in a dynamic induction. Now in this case, I can have a setup, okay, where the magnetic field is stationary. These are flux lines. Okay. Okay. And I can place a conductor, okay, to rotate. I can move in any direction, but if I want a continuous energy conversion, I have to do in the rotation path only. Okay. So here the magnetic field is staying stationary, whereas the conductor is rotating inside the magnetic field. This is one setup. Okay. The second setup is I can place conductor stationary. Okay. And I can make magnetic field rotate and link this conductor. Okay. So this is the magnetic lines of flux we have from north to south, and I give rotation to this. In both the cases, EMF is induced in the conductor. And this type of induction is known as dynamic induction. And this type of inductions we use in generator. using generator. Okay. So when I keep the conductors moving and magnetic field stationary, okay, this kind of arrangement we use in DC generators. If you remember the construction of DC machine, you can see the poles are fixed to the stator. Okay, this is we using DC generator. And this arrangement where I keep the field rotating and armature stationary, we use in synchronous generator. Both the generators you people have studied in the previous course, transformers and generators. Okay, sorry, synchronous generator. Synchronous generator. The purpose of keeping conductors stationary in synchronous generator is that conductors carry a large amount of current in synchronous generator. If you see suppose you have a generator of say 1 MVA, 1 megavolt amperes, operating at 11 kV. What is the current? I is equals to 1 mega divided by 11k. So this k and mega will go, k will remain. 1 over 11, it is around 0.9, somewhere nearly 0.9 kilo amperes. It means it has to carry 900 amperes of current. 1 megavolt ampere generator, but generator rating is not 1 megavolt, it is much more higher than this. Okay. So I cannot collect a 900 ampere of current from a rotating part. It is a very dangerous task for the health of the machine. Okay, because of large spark overs, I can't do this. Large amount of insulation is required. Machine size should be enhanced. Everything is there, but still it is not safe. A lot of breakdowns will happen. So generally what we keep for synchronous generators is we keep the armature conductors in stationary and we rotate the field winding. And field winding, they are carrying current hardly 5 to 10 amperes. The field current in generator is hardly 5 to 10 amperes operating at 220 volt DC. So supplying 5 to 10 amperes of current with 220 volt DC to a rotating part is not at all a big task. It is very easily done using slip rings. But the problem with collecting a 900 or 1000 amperes of current is a very big task. It is very hazardous and also it is risky. Therefore, I don't use this setup where I keep the stationary field and rotating conductor. Okay, I use this in DC generation. Why? If I don't use this setup here, I can't get DC out. You have studied how the conversion happens, AC to DC. It is through commutator segments. Now, unless and until commutator segment rotate, okay, by coming in contact with the brush, the AC is not getting converted to DC. Okay, we have this armature. We have this armature of a DC motor. This is shaft, a long shaft, and I have a commutator segments here, right? These are all commutator segments. And through the brush arrangement, I am connecting this to the external circuit. Okay, is it the connection? This is RL and this is IL. Okay, so these are the armature conductors. Remember one thing, the current in armature conductor is always AC. The current in the load is always DC. So this commutator segment, okay, commutator segment, this converts AC to DC. So DC is available only beyond commutator and brush arrangement. Before commutator and brush arrangement, it is AC only. Now, if I don't use this setup of a rotating conductor and stationary field, I don't get DC output. So here I have to use the rotating conductor and stationary field. Because of this construction, because of this physical conversion of AC to DC or mechanical conversion of AC to DC, it has got a limited operation or voltage values. I can't use DC generation for large voltages and large power applications because the size of the generator should be very large and also it is hazardous. Okay, the tendency of flashover and short circuit is very high when the voltage values increase in the commutator segments, which you in detail study in design, machine design. Okay, there you will appreciate the concepts what you studied in the machines. Okay, so what you studied in the machines subjects, transformer and generators previous in course, and motors in this course, each and every point is useful for you to study the design. So you are not you can't afford to forget the concepts what you study in these two courses or in these two subjects. You have to remember this. Okay, then only machine design is a very beautifully understanding subject. Else you will be lost in middle. You will never get to know what you are studying actually. Okay, so this is my suggestion. Okay, coming back here. So these are the two types of dynamic induction. Okay, now the direction of induced EMF is given by Lenz law in static induction. Then how do I get it in dynamic induction? Okay, so the direction of induced EMF. Just a moment. Okay. Direction of uh, dynamically induced EMF. Yeah, how I can give? Anybody can suggest? Is given by? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Is given by?
Yes.
Yeah. Which rule?
Right hand thumb.
Yes.
Right hand thumb.
Right hand thumb rule is for the flux produced in a conductor.
Fleming's right hand rule.
It is given by Fleming's right hand rule. Fleming's right hand rule. Okay. So what does it state? Fleming's right hand rule. When we stretch first three fingers of right hand mutually perpendicular to each other. Okay. When we stretch first three fingers of right hand. Okay. Yeah. Pardon me. And this is not a right hand of any zombie. Okay. If thumb indicates when we stretch first three fingers of right hand mutually perpendicular to each other, such that if thumb indicates direction of motion, of conductor, forefinger indicates direction of field, then middle finger indicates direction of EMF, induced EMF, or current. Okay, you have to state in this way only. You can't simply attach the directions to these three fingers and end it. Whenever we are stating the rules and the laws which are universal in nature, we should be first stating the cause, then stating the effect. I told you this the same thing even in when we were discussing Ohm's laws and Kirchhoff's laws in the previous course, electric circuit analysis, which I handled. There also I told, whenever you people are defining the laws and the rules, You should be first stating the cause, then you should be stating the effect. So what is the cause? The cause is rate of change of flux. What is the effect? An induced EMF. So the induced quantity should come at the last. Okay. Okay. So here, whenever when I stretch the first 3 fingers of right hand, if the direction of thumb indicates direction of motion, if it should start with if the direction of motion, if the direction of thumb indicates the direction of motion of conductor, and if the direction of forefinger is the direction of field, then only the direction of middle finger indicates the direction of induced EMF, else not. You can't assign a motion to forefinger and field to thumb. Then your middle finger will not give the direction of induced current or EMF. Okay. So this is how you should remember. So 3 things you remember here. Okay. Thumb, okay, forefinger, okay, and middle finger. Okay. So this M, you remember it for motion, whether it is left hand or right hand, it is same. Forefinger, F, you remember it for field. Middle I and last E, you remember it for current or EMF. This is the way to remember. It is not because these alphabets are there in these words, hence the direction is given. Okay, it is just the way, a shortcut to remember. Okay, so okay, so this is how the direction of induced EMF is given. Now this is all about the generator action. What about motor action? What is principle of motor? Okay, we already have stated this.
Faraday's electromagnetic.
Yes.
Whenever a current carrying conductor placed in a magnetic field experiences a mechanical force.
Yeah, it will experience a mechanical force. Okay, so a current carrying conductor placed in magnetic field experience a mechanical force. Why? This was the last point where we stopped the first class. Why it so? Why it is so? Why a current carrying conductor placed in a magnetic field should experience the mechanical force? What if it rejects to experience? Now go back to your childhood. All of us, we have played with magnets. Whether a bar magnet or a circular magnet, yes? Did we play or not?
Yes, sir.
So we were fascinated by its operation. Okay. So one was North Pole and one was South Pole. Now if I place a one more magnet near here, okay. If this is north and this is south, what will happen?
Repulsion.
Attract.
ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೋಡ್ರಪ್ಪ ಮುಂದೆ ಏನಿದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು.
Attract.
They attract, sir.
They
Attract.
they attract. What if the poles are unlike?
Repulsion.
Sorry, like poles. These poles are unlike. These poles are like. Then they will repel. What is actually happening here? One magnet is coming in the space of another magnet. That is, both the magnetic fields of both the magnets are existing in the same space and they are interacting. Right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes? Yeah. Now, when the two magnetic fields are made to be existing in the same space, then the resultant magnetic field is having a capacity to do the work. It automatically gains some capacity to do the work. What is happening here? Either it is a repulsion or attraction, a work is done on both the magnets. Either they come near or they move away. In both the cases, there is a physical displacement. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So it means that a physical work is done on these two physical objects. Now what happens if I keep this magnet stationary? One I will fix and one I will keep it movable. Then the work is done on the movable magnet. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now when I take the second magnet to this fixed magnet, it will repel with a greater force. When I take first magnet to this fixed magnet, it will attract with a greater force. In both the cases, work is done on the second magnet. There is a physical displacement of second magnet.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So fundamentally, now we have seen that when two magnetic fields are made to exist in the same space, then the resultant magnetic field will gain some capacity to do the work. Can I exploit this nature of magnetic field in my motor? And I am doing the same thing. Here there are two natural magnets, and in motors I have two electromagnets. Yes? You observe here a current carrying conductor placed in a magnetic field. Now I have a magnetic field. Okay. I have a current carrying conductor. Okay. Now we know that a current carrying conductor will produce its flux surrounding it. Yes. The very first point what we have seen is the same thing, right? Assuming that that conductor is highly inductive. So this current carrying conductor will create a flux around it. Now, are there two fluxes? Yes. Now there is a flux created by this magnetic field. There is a flux created by this conductor. Now there are two magnetic fields. Flux is a magnetic field. Okay. There are two magnetic fields in the same space. What should happen? Either there should be attraction or there should be repulsion. In both the cases, there is some work done. Now, if I have kept the magnetic field, the main magnetic field stationary, now this conductor either it will move to right or to left or to up or to down or in any angle. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This will either move up or down or in any direction. So that force, okay, is it the force that is exerted on this conductor? That is the result. A current carrying conductor placed in magnetic field experience a mechanical force. Why it experience? Because the current carrying conductor's magnetic field and the main magnetic field are interacting with each other, and as a result of interaction, there is a displacement. Either attractive displacement or repulsive displacement. But in both the cases, there is a mechanical force exerted, and that mechanical force is given by F equals to BIL. If the motion is angular, it will be BIL sin theta, where B is the magnetic flux density, I is the current carried by the conductor, L is the length of conductor, theta is the angular position. Okay. So the principle of operation of motor is simply two magnets existing in the same space. Okay. Now what I am doing in motor, I know that I am getting some displacement. Now I am restricting that displacement in a rotational form and making use of that because of production of torque. Now when the force is rotating, it is called as torque. We know all this. Okay. So purposely I am making the force exerted on this conductor to be rotating in nature, so that there is a continuous conversion of energy, or there is continuous development of force, and that continuous development of force I use to do some mechanical work. So this is the fundamental operating principle of any motor, whether it is DC, whether it is synchronous, whether it is AC, whether it is linear, whether it is reluctance motor, stepper motor, servo motor, any motor you take, this is the very fundamental principle of operation of motor. That a current carrying conductor placed in a magnetic field should experience a force. Why? Those are two magnets existing in the same space, hence they will interact with each other, and they will, as a result, they will uh, uh, develop a displacement through force. Okay. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So you please note down the doubts if you have any. We shall discuss whenever you want to discuss the doubts. With this, we'll end today's session. Okay. So in the next class, we'll start with the construction of DC generator. Okay. Sorry, DC motor, DC machine in general, and then we'll start with the construction. I will not deal with in detail. Briefly, I will tell you the construction, because we need to use many construction features also in our analysis sometimes. So therefore, we'll briefly look into the construction of DC machine, and then we'll move with the analytical part, that is there we have to deal with. So we'll end today's session here. In the next class, we'll continue with